court overturned what was supposed to be a court proceeding turned into something very much different.
Trinity suspension. The BUT president heads to court as her third suspension looms.
Vasily returns. An accused murderer returns to court looking for bail. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
It's back to the negotiating table for Baha Mar in a bid to get the resort open. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Saunders.
And I'm Charisma Robinson. While Bahama executives had hoped to have their application of bankruptcy approved by the local Supreme Court today after filing for Chapter 11 in Delaware last week, in an interesting turn of events, all parties have now agreed to go back to the drawing board to work out a deal that could hopefully bring about a speedy resolution for the resort that has had its share of challenges. Janelle Ferguson was in court today and has that story.
Negotiations started immediately between parties involved in the Baha Mar dispute after court proceedings ended on Monday in what appears to be a final attempt to complete construction and have the multi-billion-dollar resort finally opened. Attorneys representing Baha Mar, the Attorney General's office, and now China Construction Bahamas Limited returning to court Tuesday before Justice Ian Winder, all agreeing to go back to the negotiating table. It was a packed courtroom of legal representatives, all with a vested interest in the future of the project. Now, attorney for Baha Mar made the initial request to have the matter adjourned so that a resolution could be sought. State Minister for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez had no objection, but insisted that timelines be put in place for the good faith of negotiations. The development, he said, is of extreme importance and is exceptionally urgent. Now, attorneys representing China Construction Company America Bahamas, Sean Maury and Timothy Eneas, also made application to join with the state as the largest non-secured creditor in the deal with some $200 million invested. They said the company plays an integral role in resolving the mounting issues with Baha Mar, and it is imperative for them to join in order for that settlement to be meaningful. He noted, though, that some 400 Chinese workers have completed work on the project but have not had any remuneration of payment from February of this year. Now, outside of court, State Minister for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez explained that those workers will not be a part of those paid by the government. Now, other creditors owed by Baha Mar were also present, including Cable Bahamas, BEC, and Water and Sewage. Gomez said it is in the best interest for all for this matter to be resolved. With sides now agreeing to go back to the table, Gomez was asked, who now holds the trump card?
You don't enter negotiation with that in mind.
Meanwhile, the government has filed a writ on Baha Mar to possibly reclaim Crown land given to Baha Mar. Gomez said this was done to protect the interests of the country. He's also hopeful that an agreement can be reached soon.
And it's hoped that the parties can put aside the vitriolics that's been a recent feature of this and get down to resolving the issues so that we can report in 7 days to His Lordship that we're making good progress or that we have reached a settlement.
And if they don't,
well, we can proceed with whatever applications we have.
Gomez indicated that they also expect to have discussions with officials in Beijing soon. The parties will return to chambers for a status hearing on July 14th, and the matter has been adjourned until July 20th. Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Baha Mar released a statement following court proceedings today saying it looks forward to engaging in substantive discussions with the parties to try and reach a consensual resolution that will allow them to move forward, and acknowledges the government's constructive role in those conversations. Now, But prior to that development, though, Baha Mar issued a very strong statement blasting government over the non-payment of staff, with government lashing back, setting the record straight, saying delay was because of the unnecessary amount of information exchanges between Baha Mar and the Treasury. Clint Watson joins us live. And Clint, this really is a stark change in tone compared to what we had last night.
Chris, you said it correctly. It's a contrast and a big difference in the war of words. The war of words escalated to new levels when Baha Mar released a statement late Monday regarding the government's payment to employees, noting that it was not their issue, but a government one. Baha Mar claimed the government kept coming back for more information to process salaries. Baha Mar said it found it disgraceful, saying it was prepared to pay salaries. However, the government saw fit for its own reasons to obstruct this process. Baha Mar called it unconscionable and disappointing, saying the government was concocting a sideshow. The statement questions why the government, in their view, is not fully supporting the project's developer, which along with Bahamians have been victimized by the repeated failures of the general contractor. Baha Mar termed the government's behavior as sowing confusion and doubt about the future of Baha Mar. Well, Prime Minister Perry Christie called Baha Mar's statement disappointing, both its intemperate tone and incorrect content. The Prime Minister called it particularly regrettable. He says at a time when rationality and cool heads are required to deal with the current crisis at Baha Mar, the company's leadership appears to be going to pieces under the mounting pressure. He also said that the statement from Baha Mar has given him grave concern for the state of Sarkis Israelian's mind, adding that as recently as Sunday, Mr. Israelian was calling him completely unsolicited to give his private assurances and to express confidence in him. But now, just one day later, he was issuing a public statement saying the exact opposite and in tones resonating with gross disrespect for the elected authority of this land. Mr. Christie says he is at a loss to recall any previous instance of a foreign investor who took it upon himself to publicly excoriate the government of the day in such a shrill and belligerent manner. Now, the Prime Minister also said that Mr. Israelian should cease and desist from trying to fool his own workers and the general public, and that he ought to know full well that the delay in effective payment to the workers had absolutely nothing to do with any stalling or obstructive action on the government's part. The Prime Minister said he was advised that it was a result of normal informational requirements of the government's bankers and necessary account information exchanges between Baha Mar and the Treasury. The Prime Minister said this is no time for Mr. Israelian to buckle under the pressure and lose his balance. The Prime Minister suggested he keeps his nerves steady, stop talking nonsense, and join with the government and all other interested parties in reaching a speedy and definitive resolution of the current crisis. So, Chris, there you have it, a stark contrast with the war of words that took place overnight. Now we're seeing softer tones and a willingness to definitely work with the two sides. And we can tell you that some of the employees have already been paid today, so we know that salaries are taking place and have been issued to Baha Mar employees. Back to you guys.
All right, Clint, thanks a lot. Coming up, a man injured in a house fire. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the new Shell and Letty, designed for extra miles.